Fighting talk from our Andys already on our first topic. So on to the next one. Which is the best decade for data viz? The 1910s or the 2010s? First up is Andy Cotgreave. Over to you.
Thank you, Archana. Yes, I'm going to argue that the best decade for data viz discourse and development was not the 2010s, but it was actually back in the 1910s. I'm going to start with a quote. Andy, you may know this already, but everybody else, what year is this quote from? Millions of dollars are spent annually on the collection of data and the assumption that the possession of the data will solve the problem at hand. Right? Millions of dollars being spent on data without solving any problems. 1910s, 2010s, 1980s, 60s, 50s? No, that line was from 1914. Yes, 100 years ago, we were worrying about wasting money on data and not getting any analysis. And it comes from this book, a book by Willard Cope Brinton, Graphic Methods for Presenting Facts. This is the first book ever written on data analysis and how to run an analytical organization in an enterprise. 1914. This book is chock full of incredible examples of how to do visualization and analytics. Now, we have this recency bias that we think, oh, the 2010s, this is the time of big data, and we've invented all these new tools and techniques. Here are 3 reasons why it was all the same 100 years ago. First of all, 1914 was an age of big data too. With a punch card and a Hollerith tabulating machine, you could process 3,000 records per hour. Big data expanding the ability to look at data. Incidentally, this guy on the right is not Andy Kirk in his first job. This is Mr. Hollerith, who went on to take these machines and found IBM. So this was the start of a major corporation. But that was the age of big data, just as it feels like we're in today. Secondly, we think in the last 10 years that we've been critiquing chart types and thinking about how best to visualize data. Well, he had pie charts and radar charts in his book in 1914, but he had them there because he says they should be banished to the scrap heap. We've been arguing about pie charts for at least 100 years. This one on the left is pretty cool. It shows how families used to spend their money. About 50% of it was spent on food. Things have changed. But pie charts being terrible and being overused continues. And finally, we think of the last decade as an era of drag and drop. Interfaces like Tableau allow us to look at data this way or look at it that way and get different perspectives in a very rapid time frame. Brinton had us covered in 1914. All you need for enterprise analytics was index cards and a really intelligent analyst. Take one index card, put 1 year's worth of data on there. This is automobile sales from 1911. Then with the executive, you could get on a table all the different relevant index cards and look at them one on top of the other, side by side, to get these incredible insights. This is interactive data analytics with index cards. And the final great news, Andy, for both you and I, was that what Willard Cope Brinton thought was that analytics is the work any man of even ordinary mental caliber can do. That was the best decade, and on that note, over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking us on a tour through the museum. That was very, very nice to revisit that era. And we do appreciate what those people did in that era to build the foundations of this field. We need to move forward. We've just exited the 2010s, and this was the golden age. An age that I also entered this world. This is me 10 years ago. Fresh-faced, enthusiastic, energetic, positive. And despite appearances, I'm still of that mindset. This is my very first blog post of February the 5th, 2010, critiquing a pie chart. So yes, on that front, things have not moved on. I'll give you one little rhythm of praise for that. But as Leyland Wilkinson expresses here, we really are in an other age of perfect experimentation, glorification tools and experimentation, but also in terms of new techniques and new members. And what defines, I think, a great era is multifaceted. First of all, great works. Over the last 10 years, I can pick many, many, many works I feel have taken the field forward. Just a few examples. The Earth-Wind map from Cameron Beccario. This is something that is the perfect intersection of elegance, beauty, functional impact. It informs, it delights, it attracts attention. It's used on media to tell the stories. This is from Storm Brian, we're now currently experiencing. It's a wonderful exhibit of visualization at its best. Last year, the work from Pedro Cruz and his colleagues to create these dendrograms, these tree rings of immigration into the US, this new recipe of combining point marks and colours and concentric rings to show the ebbs and flows and the bulges and pulses of where people come into America from. Fantastic display. A really innovative way to show and analyse in a sort of tree map formulation the 8,000 works of Picasso. This is from Alberto Lucas Lopez from National Geographic, and this was hand painted. So it isn't just about contemporary tools, it's still about using artisanal methods. And on that front, Mona Chalabi of The Guardian has really popularised these very sort of beautiful hand-drawn illustrations, in this case to give people a sense of the decline of certain species, to give you some context, in this case, position it in the carriage of a subway. So these are just some of the examples that show the boundary pushing that's taken place over the last 10 years. Another way to express the growth, the importance of this last decade is the increase in mainstream penetration of visualisation. We now see more and more displays of visual representations in the media, not just newspapers but on TV, for a mass mainstream audience. Events like the Olympics, the World Cup in football, the elections that take place almost every month these days, these are now being bolstered by some wonderful visual rich displays. But perhaps most importantly is the membership. A healthy, forward-thinking industry like visualisation or community is the better for more people being involved, a more diverse cast and crew of people, a greater set of voices that have equal importance, and this last year we've seen the emergence of the Data-Viz Society, which has just created a new canvas, a blank canvas for all these new entrants to say, here's my opinion, here's my voice, here's my discourse. So we are really living in this age of brilliant discourse, innovation, experimentation, wonderful technologies, wonderful data, and also wonderful appetite for the people out there who want to see these things being produced. So I think we've just exited the very best decade.
Thank you, Andy Kirk. So to wrap up Andy Kirk's arguments, surely big data has transformed our recent society, and that's why we're in this golden age of data visualization. So Cotgreave, what do you say to that?
Well, okay, let's take Andy's points one by one. First of all, you talked about innovative chart types. Well, in Brinton's book and amongst his peers, he was proposing new chart types. I mean, the technology has changed, but there is a chapter on how to use plaster of Paris to create a physical 3D chart type. That was innovation. Secondly, you talked about Mona Chalabi and her hand-drawn organisations, a way of engaging people. There are sections in Brinton's book talking about how he liked the cartoony style that newspapers were adopting. He liked pictures to illustrate bar charts as a way of engaging readers. That seems to me to be the same. The Data Visualization Society, an incredible organisation that started up. Brinton and a bunch of peers in New York set up an American Statistical Visualizer Society. So my position is we suffer from recency bias in that we think the most recent time, because we've lived it, is the epitome. But really, when I look at technology from the 250-year history of data visualization, you look at people have this much technology, this much data, and that enables them to have ideas beyond the limits. And so we have just gone down that scale all those times. We were in 1914, they had technology, data, and ideas. And all we've done is advance that for the last 100 years. It started in 1914.
Well, it might have started back then. And
it
again,
did.
I dot my cap to those people who did that work, not just Brinton, but all the practitioners from that era. But it's been the popularisation, the increase in participation, the increase in demand and appetite. That's what's characterised the last 10 years. So although, yes, we're building on the shoulders of giants, it's the building, it's the continuation, it's the expansion, and it's the reason why we're even stood here doing debates now, because there's an appetite out there to learn about the subject. Hopefully, and this is maybe an argument closer, hopefully the next decade is the best yet.
Well, I hope so.
So there we go.
Seems like we've reached a happy compromise. Now, I think we can all say that we couldn't have had the 2010s without the 1910s, but that's not the question we have on the cards today. It is, of course, what was the golden age of data visualization? So cast your vote below. Was it the 1910s or the 2010s? And get involved on the conversation on Twitter with the hashtag DataVizDebate.